collecting performance and system information. In this nugget, we're going to go through many of the tools that we have yet to use in this course for monitoring SQL Server. So a lot of demos here. We'll start with dashboard reports. SQL Server is chock full of lots and lots of good reports that we can use. Many of these sit on top of DMVs, but they give us a visual, interactive way to look and work with the data. We'll also look at the activity monitor, which is a great real-time monitoring tool within SQL Server that we can use to monitor everything from performance to I/O to expensive queries. So we'll look at that. We'll also take a look at the top DMVs that every DBA should know. These are the DMVs that should be in your virtual pocket protector and our go-to DMVs. So most of these we've used throughout this course, but what I want to do is just give you a centralized view of all of them and point out the important ones, the ones that will be your go-to DMVs when things go wrong. And at the end here, I'll show you how we can use SQL Profiler to create and then replay a trace. That's going to be extremely useful when troubleshooting problems, whether they're from an application or internally within the database. Creating a trace allows us to capture a workload. And if that workload is the one causing problems, then having the ability to reproduce that problem will make it much easier for us to verify if we've actually fixed it. So we can try to fix it, replay it to see if we get the same behavior, and then just keep doing that until the problem is solved. So the profiler is great for things like that. And we'll take a look at how to do that. Let's jump right into the virtual Nugget Lab, and I'll show you how we can monitor SQL Server using many of these tools. Welcome back to the virtual Nugget Lab. Let's jump in to SQL Server Management Studio. We have a new project inside of our solution here, 23.monitoring. And the first thing I want to do is just take you through these reports. So you've got reports at all levels here. If you right-click on the instance, we have instance-level reports here, and there's a lot of good ones. The server dashboard I love, a lot of great overview information for how the server, from configuration options to performance. I'll show you that one. Configuration changes history, that's extremely useful as well. Schema change history. We've got memory consumption. We've got performance reports down here, activity reports, transaction reports. All of these are just excellent. Let me show you the server dashboard one here. The server dashboard report is nice because it gives us a lot of state information about SQL Server, including product, version, services. We've also got non-default configuration options. These are ones that we've changed throughout the length of this course. Agent XPs, CLR enabled, database mail. We turned all of those on. We've got activity details, active sessions, active transactions, active databases, and down at the bottom here, we have CPU and I/O split up across our databases. So these are just awesome, and they're just so easy to consume that I really wanted to show you where they are. Also at the database level, if you right-click on a database and go into reports, we get database level reports. So you get all kinds of disk usage reports here, overall top tables, broken out by table and broken up by partition. All the backup and restores that have occurred are in here. That's also useful. Transactions, all transactions and all blocking transactions. You also get transactions by certain metrics. Object execution statistics is a good one, and then index usage and physical statistics. These are built, obviously, right on top of their DMV counterparts. So all of these reports are great. They're easy to consume and work with, and I just wanted to show you where they were. Now, also Activity Monitor. If you want to launch Activity Monitor, you need to right-click on the instance and click on Activity Monitor. Activity Monitor has always been one of our go-to tools. If you've worked with SQL Server in the past, then especially way in the past, then you know this was really our only tool way back in the day. If something were to suddenly go wrong with SQL Server, the first thing you do is fire up Activity Monitor to see what's currently going on. So right now we can see processor utilization, waiting tasks, database I/O, and we can even see our batch requests per second. But it gives us the ability here to look at currently running processes. So we can manage them. We can right-click and terminate them. We can view the details of them. We can sort and filter, see what's blocked, what's not blocked. So it's just a great real-time view of what's going on. We also have our resource weights here broken out that we can see our data file I/O. You can choose a database here, and we can see the current I/O that's happening at the database and file level. And we can also see our recent most expensive queries here. Oh, and something else that's really nice. This is a great starting point for finding what queries are causing problems or taking up too many resources. And then once you find them in here, you can right-click and look at the execution plan and start tuning them. So I love that little feature there because it makes it really easy to not only find the queries, but also find the hotspots within those queries using the query plan. Great stuff. Moving on here, another super useful thing I wanted to show you was some of the top DMVs for DBAs. And before we even get there, I just wanted to show you how you can get a quick list of all the dynamic management objects in SQL Server, all the DMVs and DMFs. We can just query system underscore objects where the name is like DM underscore wildcard. And watch this. This is going to give us a list of all the DMVs and DMFs here in SQL Server. And here they are. You can even see if it's a view or a function here in the type. And to take this a step further, say you found something that you wanted to see how to use it. Just copy it, put a sys in front of it, highlight it, and do a Shift F1 on your keyboard. That will bring up the context-sensitive help there, take us right to the help page, which will give us a description and also show all the return columns and what they mean. And usually they'll even give us an example of how to use it. So that is really, really useful because you can quickly figure out how to use DMVs. So just remember that, context-sensitive help, and also remember a quick little query here to find out what DMVs and DMFs are in the system. So some of the useful ones here, and again, we've looked at pretty much all of these throughout this course. Ones that we have in here, DM exec connections, it shows us established connections. Sessions shows us authenticated sessions, and request current requests. So these are good for seeing who's coming into SQL Server and what's going on in SQL Server. Also, execution query related ones. We've looked at all these cache plans to see currently cached execution plans. Query plans, which will give us a show plan for a given cached plan. Query stats. This is great for, this is essentially what the activity monitor is built on top of for seeing what the most expensive queries are. So that's a good one for figuring that out. SQL text allows us to pretty much cross with anything that has a SQL handle in it to pull out the actual query associated with that item. These next three you can pretty much live by for all your indexing needs. Physical stats will show us size and fragmentation, so it'll give us an idea of what we need to do for managing and maintaining our indexes. Usage stats are great for figuring out what indexes are getting used, what aren't getting used. We can easily remove unused indexes. And then missing index details here will help us discover missing indexes. So these are all three just great for index design and management. On the OS side of things, performance counters, this DMV is great because it gives us all of the SQL Server performance counters and their current values. We looked at that one. OS schedules is good for detecting CPU pressure. OS waiting tasks gives us a view of concurrency as it is right now. Any tasks that are currently waiting on a resource will show up inside of this DMV. And then OS wait stats is good for looking at all kinds of things, but mostly locking, blocking, and I/O pressure. Speaking of I/O, virtual stats are really nice because they give us stats for data and log files, so we can see how much activity these are generating. And then pending I/O requests shows us if we have any I/O bottlenecks out there. And I also just wanted to throw in the CLR one since we've done quite a bit of CLR stuff in this course. CLR loaded assembly shows us all the current CLR assemblies loaded in memory. And then DM CLR task shows us all the currently running CLR tasks. And the last thing I want to point out about DMVs is Books Online has a great overview page here that centralizes and groups all these DMVs together. So if you wanted to find a specific DMV here, you could just choose click on a category. Here's a list of all the DMVs in that category, and now you can click on it, and there it is. We're at the help page, just like if we were to do context-sensitive help there in SQL Server Management Studio. I also want to point out that for server scope DMVs and functions, you need view server state permission on the server, and for database scope DMVs and functions, you'll need view database state permission on the database. Let's move on to SQL Profiler. So what we're going to do is fire up Profiler and create a trace. We're going to capture a workload, which is going to consist of a straight transact SQL query, and then we'll also execute a stored procedure a few times. We'll analyze the results, and then we'll replay the workload. Again, this is really good for those scenarios where you have a problem. You want to recreate that problem. So you can capture the problem initially. That'll give us a workload inside of a trace. Then we can do whatever we need to do on the SQL Server side to try to fix it, and then we can replay that trace, reproduce that issue to see if we fixed it. So let me show you where SQL Profiler is. Start all programs, SQL Server 2012, down into Performance Tools and SQL Server Profiler. So once this fires up, we need to click on the first button here, which will get us a connection to our instance that we want to profile and create traces against. We can give it a name here. Let's just call this Nugget Demo DB. And then, since we want to replay this trace, there are a couple of requirements with replay. Certain events and fields need to be captured. And an easy way to do this is to start here with a template, the T-SQL replay template, and then you can tweak it from here. Let's just save this to a file for now. Let's save it here inside of our Nugget Lab files for this Nugget, 23.monitoring. And it will be called nddb .trc, and everything else here looks good. Now we can go over to event selection. You can see since we chose a template, it's going to pre-select a lot of events. And again, the events that are going to be required are things like database ID, and there's a couple of other ones in certain events like cursors need to be required. But what you can do is if you want to add more here, just hit show all events, and then you can trap for more events if you would like. Also, you can show all columns. Not all the columns are here by default. But what we want to do here is put a column filter on. Let's put a column filter on database name. We only want to trap events that hit this database. So this is a great way to really trim out all the extra noise that will be coming in that the profiler will catch here. So as long as our database name is Nugget Demo DB, that's the only information, the only events, and the only trace information we're going to capture here. So once this is good, we can hit run, and that's going to run. So this trace is sitting here running right now. It's monitoring anything that happens in Nugget Demo DB. Let's run this query first. Oh, we need to switch databases here. There we go. We'll run our query and flip over to SQL Profile and check it out. So batch started right here, batch completed. And by the way, when we switched databases, that was also a batch completed there. But here's the starting and here's the completed event. Now let's go back here and execute 3 stored procedures. All 3 of those are going to get executed. And now if we head back to Profiler, here they are. So here's our starting and here's our completed. Since that was one batch, all 3 of those got one event here inside of Profiler. So now that we've done everything, let's stop it. That'll stop the trace. And now what we can do is, let's say, even if we wanted to run this, say, on a different instance, this is pretty neat. So first, let's just open that back up here. Let's open up the trace. And now let's go to replay, and we can hit start. So this is neat. Where do we want to replay this trace? Let's connect to the instance, which will default to right here in our replay server. And this is extremely useful because if you're having a problem in production, you probably don't want to try to fix big issues in production. What you want to do is copy production to test, take that trace that you captured in production, bring it over to test, and then you can do anything you want on that test database. So that's a beautiful thing right here, being able to change our connection and run this replay on a different instance. So we've got some basic replay options down here. If you didn't want to do this and monitor it in real time, you could save the results to a file or to a table. You have some replay options down here as well, and then some advanced options where you can restrict this to a specific SPID if you wanted to. You could limit the replay by date and time, and then you also have some health monitoring options. But pretty straightforward from this point. Just hit OK. That didn't take too long. So let's expand this. The first row is always just going to contain all of our replay settings. Then anytime you see an event, it's going to fire off that event. The results set event then just tells us that it's done. It's done executing our batch. And if we scroll over here, any result set will have the profiler measured duration, how long it took there to run that event. And then after that, you'll have all of your result row events, which will show us the actual data that came back. And at the end here, you also get a replay performance event class as well. And then here's our stored procedure execution that executed all 3 of those stored procedures in one batch. If we were to execute these one by one, we would have a different batch starting event for each one. But we did them all in one batch. That's why we're seeing all 3. The first one here is the result set event. So it shows us this one didn't take very long to execute, and it brought back 1 record. Here's our second one and all the records for it. And if we scroll down, here is our third one and all of the records for it. And at the very end here, you'll get a replay statistics event, which shows us the total events, if any errors occurred, our hit ratio stats, and then a useful one here, the total replay time. So SQL Profiler is a great tool. Traces are just an extremely powerful feature that we can utilize for troubleshooting and performance, and even to a degree development. And it's kind of sad that it's going away, but hopefully we'll get all this functionality inside of extended events. And even though it is going away, it's still a part of the exam. So it's still something that we definitely should be familiar with, at least what it does and how to do basic stuff like create and replay traces. In the CBT Nugget, we learned how to collect performance and system information. We just took a brief look at all the tools that we have not looked at in this course when it comes to monitoring SQL Server. We started off with dashboard reports, showed you where you could find both server and database level reports. Those are great reports for interactive visual insights into what SQL Server is doing. We also took a look at Activity Monitor, our real-time tool for monitoring SQL Server activity. We looked at some of the top DMVs, showed you how to get context-sensitive help for DMVs, and also where you can find a good list of DMVs, both using Transact SQL and in Books Online. And at the end here, we took a look at how to use SQL Profiler to create and replay a trace. With that, I would like to wish you the very best of luck in 70-464 and your SQL Server journeys. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.